Hi everyone. I'm a little excited to be here, and I can see some sparks of excitement in your faces as well. That's not quite lowering the pressure though. So, when I received the invitation to do the TEDx talk, my first thought was, wow, how cool is that? I always admired the speakers who could get up on stage and deliver an intellectually challenging topic in an entertaining way. So, as my flattered brain slowly made space for a second thought, my mind went, uh-oh. Because that was the moment I realized that flattering speaker would need to be me. And what idea was spreading can a miserable student in his mid-20s possibly share? So that led me to a third thought, which was, you're gonna embarrass yourself. You're gonna embarrass yourself in front of a lot of people. And there's likely going to be footage of that in the internet. That sounds like the straight way to the American presidency. So let's get this started. I'm a medical student and a doctoral candidate. A doctoral candidate. That sounds like when you go to kindergarten and you see the big kids play high on top of the climbing frame, only you're not that kid. You're the one sitting down there as a doctoral candidate, eating the sand that falls from the big kid's shoes, and out of that situation, try to create a scientific paper. So, the area of science that I'm interested in is human cognition. Basically, our thought process, and specifically the thought models we develop around illness, which are called illness perceptions. In my research, we investigated to what extent illness perceptions influenced handicap as an outcome in patients with vertigo and dizziness. Vertigo and dizziness, meaning the feeling that everything around you is turning or shaking. So, as we investigated this association, we controlled for the severity of symptoms, anxiety, and depression. Your first thought might be, well, of course, a person is more handicapped the more severe their symptoms are. Sounds logical. Secondly, you might also know that anxiety is a state where people don't feel well. They feel shaky, so it makes sense that people with anxiety are more handicapped. And lastly, you might know that depression is a state where people have absolutely no motivation to feel good or work for a positive outcome, so it makes sense that depressive people are more handicapped than happy ones. Interestingly though, what we found is that symptom severity, anxiety and depression only explained 40% of the variance in handicap. 42% of the variance in handicap were explained by illness perceptions, mostly by perceived consequences. Perceived consequences, meaning the patient's concept of how the illness affects their life, physically, socially, and so forth. So, to sum this up, what we found is that illness perceptions better explained handicap than did the severity of symptoms, anxiety, and depression together. These results are also reflected in daily patient care. I remember being at the outpatient clinic, assisting an expert neurologist to see patients. One patient came in, barely able to walk. She had to use walking sticks and was still heavily handicapped. She was known to the neurologist for having benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, and don't worry, we're not going to go into detail on this. The only thing I would like you to know is that the cause for this illness lies in the inner ear, in the vestibular organ, where balance is measured. In this organ, there are little crystal stones that help to measure head position and movement. So, in our patients, some of these little stones had fallen out of position, rolling around, disturbing her balance measurement. So what do you think she had in her ear? The Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones can be repositioned by a maneuver which we performed. However, the patient still couldn't walk. Even though the stones should have been back in position, she couldn't get no satisfaction. So the cause could have been that she had developed such strong beliefs she couldn't walk that she actually couldn't walk. So what we did is, we encouraged her to try and walk without her sticks. With our support, she could. Next, we tried and motivated her to walk without our support. And to take her attention away from the negative beliefs, the neurologist drew numbers on the patient's back and asked the patient to guess these numbers. The patient started walking, slowly, steadily, guessing the numbers, and step by step went more upright, straight, without shaking. How can this be possible? The answer is simple. By distracting the patient from her negative beliefs with the humble trick of drawing numbers on her back, the patient could walk. So, why would you care what happens inside the minds of dizzy patients? We like to look at the outside. We like to fly to the moon, dream about living on Mars. We like to go big. But what happens when you look at the inside? What do you know about yourself? You most likely know your weight. You might also know your height, because that's important on Tinder. But what do you know about your perceptions, about your cognitions, about your beliefs? Sometimes I feel like we know more about Lucy, which is a 10 quintillion carat diamond planet 38 trillion centimeters away from Earth, than we know about the 15 centimeters between our ears. And just imagine, if a person who has an illness making them feel constantly shaky and unstable can walk by being distracted from her negative beliefs, then what can young, healthy, and talented individuals like you do when changing beliefs? Research suggests that you can perform better at your jobs, you can have better relations, and you can lead a happier life. So yes, beliefs matter to healthy persons as well. It is as simple as how you perceive the situation you are in. Rory Sutherland once compared two groups, pensioners and young unemployed. On the first side, they don't seem to have a lot in common, and indeed, pensioners show to be much happier. However, at a closer look, both find themselves in quite a similar situation. Both have too much time at their hand, no idea what to do with it, and no money. So, Generation Y, our generation, we figured out an amazing trick for that situation. We call too much time, absolutely no idea what to do with our lives, and no money, gap year. It sounds great and it feels great, but more importantly, what this tells us is that beliefs about certain situations can be changed by playing simple tricks. And what I want to do with you now is, I want to introduce you into two concepts that can help us to change our perceptions. First, don't forget the positive. Most of the people focus on the negative they experience. Just as our patient from before, focusing on the negative consequences of her illness, she might have taken herself the ability to walk. Especially in academia, we are trained for a negative bias. If you come to a doctor with one health problem, we'll find 10 more for you. You come with a cough, we'll make sure you leave knowing that you also have diabetes, a high blood pressure, and morbus Schletter, because we want you to come back for another appointment in the next quarter. That's our business model. However, in everyday life, it's not the negative that increases productivity. And for sure, it's not the negative that increases happiness. Seligman et al. Did a study where they evaluated behaviors that they thought led to a happier life. And what they found is that writing down 3 positive things every day for a week will make you significantly happier even after 6 months. Now that's what I call effective therapy. On a side note, if you want to boost your happiness even more, you express your gratitude to a person who deserves it. And I don't mean the gratitude you express when typing "thank you so much for that message" at the beginning of an email answer. I mean, you truly and personally express your gratitude. Because research suggests that this makes you even happier, and because sadly enough, it's usually the ones we love the most we show the least gratitude. Second, mind the mind and its connection to the body. We are used to the idea that our gestures support and reflect our speech and thought. But a growing number of studies suggest that there is also an inward influence of our body position and movement on our cognitions. This concept is called embodied cognition. So, just as our mind can trick our bodies into not walking, our bodies can also trick our minds. And you might have experienced this yourselves. You might have sat up straight when facing a difficult task, or you might have experienced a boost of thoughts as you went for a walk. Brynel, Petty, and Wagner did an experiment where they had one group of college students write down 3 positive character traits, and the other group of students 3 negative traits. In each group, half of the students sat bent down with a curved spine, and the other group sat straight up, chest out, as they noted their answers. And you might already guess what they found. Not only did the ones in the straight-up posture show more positive belief, they were also more confident about what they had written down. So if we take this idea and generalize it, it suggests that certain body positions and movements can make us more positive in our beliefs and more confident about our ideas. Now, I know that everybody's different, which is why I would suggest that you do your own research. Maybe instead of sitting with a curved spine, as you wait for your next job interview, you sit straight up, chest out, or you even get up and walk a little. I'd be curious how that job interview felt. Finally, these were two very simple, maybe even obvious ways to change our cognitions. No rocket science. But you and I know that sometimes it's the little things that matter just as much. I'm not standing here because I built a successful enterprise, not because I developed Hyperloop. I'm not standing here because I achieved anything big, but because I strongly believe that if we think more positively, are more confident about our ideas, and show gratitude to the people who deserve it, we all can achieve something big. And that is an idea worth spreading. Thank you.